light and heat. Time to take a stand, boys. Time to make a choice. Time to find our courage. Time to be deployed. Make our only stand here. Make our roads complete. All we waited for now, past and future meet. Get your weapons ready. Kiss loved ones goodbye. Now our time is coming, and it is not the time to cry. Settle wrong from right. In the time of conflict, when the bullets fly, in the space of seconds, a life you cannot buy. Face the facts before you, face the simple truth. We're hopelessly outnumbered, it's tragic but it's true. Make your last formation, take the final road. Now it's time for endings, now it's time to go. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is good to see everyone today. What's going on? Hey, Burner. Hey, Grows. Hey, Heiji. What's up, gentlemen? Hello, Certifi. What's going on, Stolpen? Hello, Masta. Lego, how are you? How is Silence Evermore? How is the Lawkeeper? What is up, Burner? How's everybody doing? Good to see everybody. And a couple things that I noticed just as I was sitting down. Burner, it is not true that this is not on iTunes, my friend. It is on iTunes. It is available everywhere. You can buy the full album. In fact, both of those albums. That album is, excuse me, that is Monomyth. That song is Onagair, which is the opening track on Monomyth, and that is available on iTunes. So you can get it on iTunes. So that's the deal. Let me see. The other thing I wanted to say was congratulations. The Level Up Shanty. I have to figure out how to do that. There's got to be a way that I can put it up someplace. I'll have to think about that. Maybe I can put it on my website. On the other hand, do I want it on my website? What's up, Clumsy? I'll have to take a look. I'll have to think about it. But I'll try to figure out some way to make it available. Nice, Twerky. That's cute. Very, very good, Lego. Very good. It is on iTunes. Damn it. I know it is somewhere. I guarantee it is. If you do, and also, by the way, if you just do a search for The Road and Facebook, or, The Road and my name in Facebook, we have links to our music page. In fact, here, let me see. Because I think I also have it on CD Baby. Hold on, let me find a link. Yeah, here we go. If you go here, if you go there, Burner, that has a link to all of my album stuff. Oh, nice. Who are oh, that's good, gentlemen. I'm glad. Well, who are the two artists? I'm curious. Who are the two artists that we're talking about? That's a link to that album, and I also have a link there to our first album, Drift. And we're actually recording our third album next month, actually. So, and you can buy individual tracks. In fact, I'm looking right at it. You can buy individual tracks, or you can buy the whole album, which is, of course, what we love. And also, I've talked about this before, but if people want, they can do something similar for the album that they do with my books, which is I'm happy to sell you a copy and sign it if you want, sign the liner notes or whatever, and then ship it to you. And for that, it would only be $10 rather than 20 for my book. It'd only be 10 for this. So that's a possibility as well. What's up, Thorg? And yes, I am very unhappy with the chat delay, as just about everybody that I've run into is unhappy with it. And the only thing I know is I was talking to Time Kitsune in somebody's stream earlier today. I think it might have been Duty Calls, and he was saying that he was on a stream where the admins made clear that they knew that this delay is totally unacceptable. They know it's too long, and they wanted it to be closer to like between 5 and 10 seconds. I mean, if the delay is 5 seconds, that's fine. If the delay is 15 seconds, it's not. And if it's 30 seconds, it's impossible. So, yeah, like there's just, Sure, EG, I can play something else. Let's see, what can I play? But anyway, the point being that Twitch, I think, is working. From what I understand, Twitch is working on it. That's what I have heard. So let us hope that is the case. Let's see. Let's find. Why don't we try? Let's try Bipolar, which is from our first album. Oh, try it again. Nope. There we go. Oh, Ludo and Cake. Well, I definitely know Cake. I haven't heard of Ludo, though, gentlemen. That's interesting. I'll have to check them out. Hey, Raiders. What's up? Hello, Law. Hello, Mulligan. Hey, Rookie. Hey, Net. What's up, guys? Hey, congratulations to Duty, by the way. Duty, man, congratulations, man, on your 24-hour stream. I actually popped in like 3 or 4 separate times into Duty's stream. And he did it, man. You did the whole 24 hours. Although, I don't know, man. I'm happy to have you here, obviously, always. But I don't know if you should be here listening to my story and watching me play. I kind of feel like you should go to bed, you know? Like you get some sleep, but in any way. What's up, Warp? Hey, Kill Team. What's up, man? Thank you, Raiders. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I know. I read that, Thorg. But apparently it can be a lot better, though. Oh, thanks, Burner. This song is Bipolar. This is off of Drift. 2 very different parts. This part is this is quieter, and then the second part is not as quiet. You'll see. What's up, Graphite? Hey, man, good to see you, dude. You will soon do your soothing voice, yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's a huge pain in the ass. I totally agree, Thorg. I'm totally disturbed with it. They're gonna make it. As I say, my understanding is they're going to improve it. They're gonna make it better. But, yeah. But short term, it sucks. It does. But, I do trust Twitch to get things basically back in order. But it sucks at the moment, I agree. And I think they know. So, anyway. So that's the deal. But it's very good to see everyone today. Welcome all the Raiders. Welcome to all the people in the stream. Kind of a different stream tonight, guys. First of all, I'm starting later than usual. I just got done with an interview. I actually got interviewed on my own podcast, Speculate, for the Icarus Kickstarter, because as you know, that's now less than a month away. And so we decided to record it now. My friend Mike Underwood, who is Capoeirist Mike, who shows up on stream. He's a regular here. Mike just got done. He was one of the guest interviewers, and then Brad Bollier, who's my co-host on Speculate, interviewed me on the Icarus. It was a lot of fun. I think it went really well. And so I'm going to be releasing that right around the time of the Icarus Kickstarter. But anyway, it meant that I got a late start. Hi, Rick. So good to see you. And so as a consequence, I am starting a little bit later. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to go through, I'm actually have a new short story. Awesome, Hiji. Definitely go and check out Hiji's YouTube stuff for sure, because Hiji has got a lot of followers on YouTube and has got some good vids over there. Anyway, so I have a new short story which is going to be part of the second volume of Time Travel Tales. The connection with Icarus is that the first volume of Time Travel Tales was put out by Silence in the Library Publishing. Silence in the Library is the publisher that's putting out Icarus, my Kickstarter, next month. And there's also a second volume of Time Travel Tales. So this story is one that I wrote for that. And I just finished it, but it doesn't have a title. So I'm going to read it, and hopefully this will help with the delay. I'm going to read it, and then hopefully you guys can help me come up with a title for it, because I need to send this thing off. Then when that's done, I'm going to play a little bit of Paper Sorcerer, not a lot of it, but I'm going to play maybe an hour or so. Then we'll have a giveaway, I'll call the night, and then next time I will have my normal length stream. So that's what's going on, but before we do that, now we have some loud guitar work. That happens first. Yeah, I'm sorry about the buffering, guys. I wish I had any control over it. As I said, crazy guitar stuff. Bow down. All right. Sorry, guys. I didn't want to try to argue with my guitar player during that. That's the other part of bipolar, as it were. Geez, let me see. I mean, it ought to be on iTunes. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Absolutely, it is. Here, let me show you. I give you, Burner, the link. That's the link to Monomyth. And right off that same page is a link to Drift also. There you go. Yeah, right? Guitar solo. That, and also the guy who was doing that, the guitar players that I had in my band are pretty sick. I am not the guitar player, in case anyone's curious. That sucks, man, Hiji. I'm sorry to hear that, dude. So, all right, everyone. So, yeah. So, just one last comment. I know the buffering sucks. I know it's terrible, and I wish I had control over it. I don't. Everyone on Twitch that I've seen, I mean, I've saw the comments. They're getting killed on this, and deservedly so. I mean, Twitch, they made a mistake, I think, and the difference is I don't think that Twitch. I think Twitch has their heart in the right place. I'm very confident, actually, that they do. And so I don't believe that they are deliberately trying to screw people over, and I think they're going to work to fix it. I know what Thorg is saying, that it's not going to be easy because they've set it up on a new backbone. There's a whole new protocol that they're using. But I do think they can get the delay better, and I think they know now that they have to do that quickly. So, hey, Anam, what's up, man? So yeah, that's the deal. Okay. Good to see you, man. What's up, dude? All right, so I am just going to quickly change this around. So again, what we're doing tonight is short story first. I'm going to read this short story. You guys will have a chance. This is a debut. No one has heard this except you guys. You're the first one to hear it. This is going into Time Travel Tales Volume 2, but it needs a title. So once it's done, I will be happy to solicit titles from people. Then I'm going to play a little bit of Paper Sorcerer, not a ton, probably like an hour or so. Then we'll do the giveaway and we'll call it, and the next stream that I do will be a normal length stream, but for a variety of reasons, it's shorter as well. Awesome. Congratulations, Inam. There you go. Hey, Dragon. What's up, dude? Hey, Demiser. Yeah, everyone's been complaining about it. It's a disaster. They know that, but they're trying to work on it. Congrats, dude. That's awesome, Inam. Congratulations, man. Okay, let me adjust this quick. New short story to appear in Time Travel Tales Volume 2. And you can help name it. Hold on a second. You're listening to... I feel like that dude from Saturday Night Live. It's 12:44 in the AM, and you're listening to Perspectives. You know that skit? And you can help name it. Afterwards... Away. Welcome to the stream. Okay. The thistle and the rhinoceros. Oh, that's bizarre, Burner. But you got it. But Burner, you can get to it, right? Yeah, that's crazy. All right, sounds good, gentlemen. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Yeah, I don't know, man. It should be there. But I don't know. Okay, so let me get my laptop in the proper spot. Okay, so here we go. Now, so there we go. So is everyone ready? Is everyone settled in? Let me get a little bit of music, actually. Let's get some music. What am I going to use for music today? Music. Let's go with... Let's go with that. Is this going to do it? We are going to go with this. Here we go. All right. A little bit of music. Okay. As I'm about to start, just so I can test my delay, anyone recognize what this is from? Hey, Rez. No, I have not started yet. Yep, that's right, Burner. Anyone recognize the music? Oh, that sucks, EG. Hang in there, man. No, hang in there, dude. Listen, Hiji. Here's the deal, man. First of all, the views may not be gone entirely. It may just be an internal thing that YouTube can fix. Secondly, remember, you did it once. You got people to listen once and watch once. They will watch again. So you have not changed. You know what I'm saying? You have not changed. So just keep that in mind. I know it's super... I can't even imagine how frustrating it must be for you. But keep in mind that you have not changed. Okay? That's important. I saw it, Dragon. I see your comment. I just saw it now. This music is for The Legend of Dragoon. This is the soundtrack to The Legend of Dragoon. About 15, 20 seconds. Yeah, I mean, that's terrible. It's still not good. They need to get that down to like 5 to 10, but they're working on it. Hiji, I'm sorry, dude. All I can suggest, man, is try to kind of listen into the story and hang out with your friends here and try to forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, don't try not to focus on that because it's just gonna drive you nuts, you know? So, okay. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, you guys ready for the story? The story that does not have a title yet, but will. You guys ready? Are your bodies ready? Wow, that delay. Yeah, I hope so, Anam, for sure. Okay. And also, here we go for another delay question. Is my voice okay relative to the music? Is it loud enough that you guys can hear? All right, cool. Awesome. And remember, as you guys are listening to this now, remember that your job also is... Okay, cool. Good night, Duty. And congratulations again, Duty. Congratulations on that 24-hour stream. Good job, man. All right. Now, we are going to get started. And remember, guys, your job also is to help me come up with a name for this story. I'm not just going to take one thing whole cloth. I'll take a few options, and then I'll let you guys know. I probably won't decide tonight. Maybe I will, but anyway. So, all right, here we go. The short story begins. Bye, Duty. See you soon, man. His metal-clad hand firmly clamped over the body of the struggling two-folded sweeper, its head whipping side to side as its wheels spun and gears squealed in protest. Artaban Driven Gear, 3rd Revision, shook his head and sighed. This was the 5th time this cycle he had tracked down a rogue sweeper, about 5 times more than normal, and there was no obvious reason for the uncanny increase. He'd started with the 4th level formation device, the FLFD, of course. He'd rotated the inductor coil a total of 73 revolutions so far with no result, and run the scaler over the central conducting spring 136 times until it was smooth enough to reflect light. But the sweepers the device was producing continued to deviate from their movement patterns. It was possible that 5 individual sweepers were simply defective, but their job, to scour the floor for loose pieces of metal and coil and pulverize them in their small but powerful interior mashers, was a painfully simple one. And besides, it had never happened before, at least for as long as Artaban could remember, which was a very long time indeed. He took pride in his memory. Of all the caretakers in the quadrant clock, he had the fewest missed assignments and the fewest mechanical inconsistencies in his sector. Yet here, he had 5 deviations in one cycle. Trouble was sure to come of it. With another sigh, Artaban rose to his full 7-foot height, still holding the squirming two-folded sweeper in his massive glove. Steam hissed and Metal Gears whirred as he straightened himself, looking down the long corridor which led from the 4th level auxiliary engine room to the main hub of the level. His Mark II mechano goggles, a trifle outdated but he never felt comfortable with the Mark III's, clicked as he cycled through several frequencies and light spectrums until he returned to day, normal ambient. He'd used X-ray heavy to find the offending sweeper, which had scurried underneath a row of gears and pistons in the back of the room at his approach, which, sadly, was never quiet. Tri-plated and appropriately jointed grayish-gold Valenium covered his legs all the way to the waist, while his arms and torso were fitted with the same material, overlaid by a steam-powered, gear-covered exoskeleton. It made him strong enough for the tasks required, lifting a ton of loose debris and various metallic odds and ends, pile-driving through the little rock structure still visible near the ground levels of the quadrant clock, but not particularly stealthy. Oh, he could fix items with his finely articulated glove overlays, the Fine Detail Region Inspector's 2400 grade. But he was no seeker. His was to build, repair, form, and clear, not track down and capture a measly two-fold sweeper. But he was beginning not to trust the FLFD, even if he could find nothing wrong with it, and until he could ascertain exactly what was going on, he was determined not to add to the problem. If the Seeker had the same problems as the sweepers, it might wander off into the machinery and cause damage which could take hundreds of cycles to fix. So here he was, holding a piece of rebellious machinery 1,000th its weight, a little wriggling metallic creation of 100 small gears and springs, and one central power core barely strong enough to light an instrument panel. Like the others, this would have to be destroyed. With a hiss and a clank, Artaban set off down the hallway, one massive boot after the other impacting the indefatigable metal floor. A soft crunch came from within the body of the sweeper as it twisted towards him, and the caretaker eyed it suspiciously. Beyond the obvious potential for embarrassment with the other caretakers at his inability to maintain his sector, defective items bothered Artaban on an almost primitive level. Things had a certain way of working, predictable and obvious and unfaltering, and when they broke down there were clear reasons as to why. He doubted very much that his father, or his father's father, had ever been as vexed by an improperly functioning unit as he had. But then he doubted that either of them had to deal with as complex an environment as he did. Emerging into the fourth level's main hub, he turned left towards the passageway which led to the main compactor. But before he entered, he halted, as always, in front of the clear shell window, practically invisible but nearly as strong as his Millennium-covered suit. He had seen this sight 6,755 times to date, yet it had never grown tiresome. The quadrant clock stood in the center of the city of Tem, largest metropolis on the world of Caldon. As the clock slowly turned, half a rotation for every cycle, the whirling gears and sparkling machinery of the city glittered below. To the west was the Builders District, its skyline uneven and erratic. To the east was the Parts District. To the south lay the Mechanofields, the testing and proving ground for every invention made in Tem. And to the north stood one massive triangular building made of brightly gleaming metal, the core, the seat of government and religion in Caldon. And towering over the city and planet, holding the entire surface of the world together, was the quadrant clock, regulating the time and energy without which the mechanical structures, and life itself on Caldon, would fail. "Our world," Artaban heard something say with a grinding crunch, and with a start he looked down at the source of the voice. It was the sweeper. "This is our world," it repeated. Artaban recoiled, almost dropping his captive. Sweepers couldn't talk. Well, certainly not the two-folded kind. They had no vocal mechanism. Yet there it was, external metal jaw working as if it were speaking. "All that we are comes from this place," it said. "But all of it will be lost now that the decay has returned. All of this will grind to a halt, and our world itself break, stop, and rust into oblivion. What will you do about it?" It stopped, and after a moment Artaban realized it was waiting for him to respond. What can I do?" he managed at last, trying not to think about the fact he was talking with a two-folded sweeper. "I am only a caretaker." "You're more than that, Artaban. And less," the sweeper said in the same strange metallic voice. "You have power to help stop the decay and save Caldon. More than Caldon, in fact. The universe itself. Or you can remain a caretaker until you break down, as your father did, and his father before him. For you, there will be no memory then of what you lost, and what you could have found." Then it fell silent, and for a long time Artaban said nothing, staring at the now calm sweeper. No caretaker liked being reminded of its creation, nor of its own hybrid nature, part organic, part mechanical, a machine which could and would eventually break down like any other, and be scrapped, like the sweeper. He thought for a long time, looking out onto the sparkling mechanical perfection of Tem. He looked down the passageway to the main compactor. Finally, he looked again at the sweeper lying now quite still in his grasp. And then, suddenly, he put the sweeper on his shoulder, feeling its wheels lock in place as he placed a restraining band over its body to hold it secure. And turning away from the compactor, he took purposeful and massive strides down the corridor which exited the 4th level. For the very first time, Artaban Drivengear, 3rd Revision, had made an entirely unpredictable decision. And even more shockingly, he was glad of it. As soon as Artaban left the quadrant clock, attracting no end of odd looks and blank stares from those he met on the way, including 14th level caretaker Elodin Metalcog, 1st Revision, who to Artaban's mind was a trifle smug for a 2nd generation model, he turned left and headed due south towards the Mechanofields. Caretakers all live within the clock, of course, and seldom ventured outside its confines except to perform repairs on the base of the building. When they did go elsewhere, it was invariably towards the Mechanofields, usually to test a new cleaning device or tuning instrument for possible use in the clock. There had been a single situation Artaban could remember where a caretaker had gone in another direction after leaving the building, when 9th level caretaker Irodel Socketwheel, 5th Revision, had gone directly to the core. But he had been summoned for that trip by the Council of Makers and was under heavy guard. And, of course, he never came back. For everyone else, a caretaker going anywhere other than the Mechanofields would raise more than a negligible amount of suspicion. So it was fortunate that Artaban's destination was what it was. He had questions, and he knew of only one creature with the potential answers, and that meant a journey to the Mechanofields. Still, even with a reasonably unsuspicious destination, the sight of a caretaker banging and hissing his way down the 65th path, as he went sidestepping third-class inventors, no doubt hurrying to the 75th annual conference on the interaction between gears and horizontal orientation, and threefold sweepers scurrying this way and that to pick up a spare metal widget or a small, almost invisible pile of metal dust, was still unusual. Walking in Tem for any significant distance was already considered a little strange, mostly the province of inventors, who were given great latitude to break traffic laws as they wandered about in excited contemplation of their newest idea to combine laser sights with jet boards or create more efficient wheel scopes from spare sweeper parts. For everyone else, though, riding in a rotorcycle or hovermobile was considered the norm, and considerably easier to manage in a city of many millions. So the strange looks and stares continued as Artaban walked on. Artaban paid little attention, for his thoughts were elsewhere. The two-fold sweeper had not spoken since they had left the quadrant clock, though he could still feel the gears whirring within the small metallic body locked on his shoulder as he stomped along. How a two-fold sweeper could speak, let alone think and apparently see the future, was utterly beyond him, and he could find no internal records describing a similar event. He had considered the possibility that he himself was defective, but he had just had diagnostic checks run on himself within the last quarter cycle with no problems reported. And he was well before the end of his expected model life, which left the inescapable yet impossible reality that the two-fold sweeper had somehow spoken of the future. What kind of a future? Artaban wondered aloud, lumbering around a young 6th-class inventor who stared at him, mouth agape, as the caretaker gave him an absent-minded nod. To be reminded of his own inevitable breakdown was one not very pleasant thing, but it was not the first time he had received such a reminder, usually from the quadrant clock coordinator who was irritated at a slight misalignment in gear 6082 or something similar. But to hear of the decay, an ancient and absurd story, a foolish tale for 7th-class inventors and other younglings, that was something else entirely. Artaban wondered vaguely if this was an elaborate test of his caretaking protocols, an attempt to determine how efficiently his systems were running. But this was an awfully complex and involved test, involving technologies well beyond Artaban's knowledge, if it was one at all. But the QCC had been annoyed with him last cycle. Perhaps he had... He stopped short as a hovermobile whizzed in front of him, and as he looked up he saw that he had arrived at his destination, or at least the first part of it. Across the 98th route, as it intersected with the 65th path, stood an enormous metal gate, the entrance into the Mechanofields. Two massive levers, at least 10 feet high, emerged from the ground on either side of the gate, and standing silently next to each lever was an even larger metallic figure, gleaming in the reflected light from the fluorolamps lining the 98th route. Gate Guardians, of course. With a sigh, Artaban marched across the route and stopped on the other side in front of the leftmost Guardian. The top of his head barely came up to the Guardian's waist. With a shudder and whine of gears, the Guardian's massive head, red floral lamp eyes burning brightly, inclined downwards. "Identify yourself," a voice from deep inside the mouthless head boomed. "Artaban Drivengear, 3rd Revision, caretaker of the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock," the caretaker replied promptly. A moment of silence, then, "Speak your purpose for entry." "I seek access to the 2nd region of the Mechanofields for..." He hesitated, considering what stated purpose would generate the fewest questions. "For consultation," he concluded after a moment. Again there was a pause before the reply. "Consultations must be cleared by the regional coordinator. No consultation requests have been received within the past quarter cycle." "This is for a situation which has just occurred. I have had no time to file a consultation request, and will do so before the next quarter cycle." "Then your request for entry will be approved then." Artaban frowned and shook his head as steam hissed. "I need consultation now. My request cannot wait." "Consultations must be cleared by the regional coordinator," the Guardian boomed, almost placidly. Artaban narrowed his eyes, his Mark II mechano goggles increasing their apertures slightly to compensate. Gate Guardians were not known for flexibility, of course, and dealing with them was often an exercise in frustration. But they were seldom this recalcitrant to command. "I am a caretaker of the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock," he said, drawing himself up as high as he could go, still little more than half the size of the Guardian. "And I need consultation. I must have entry to the Mechanofields. You will permit that entry." Silence again. "You are a caretaker of the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock," the Guardian acknowledged. "I cannot permit entry without clearance." Artaban made an adjustment to his internal temperature gauge, which was beginning to emit a quiet warning beep. "I demand that..." But he stopped as he heard a small, high voice to his left. "What seems to be the problem, Guardian?" the voice asked. Turning, Artaban saw a small bipedal creature, covered in a small metal suit, sitting in a seat perched on the back of a copper-colored mechanical creature with 8 spindly legs, bending and straightening as it stood next to the caretaker. "Regional Coordinator," he said, bowing his head in a mixture of acknowledgement and relief. The metal-clad creature leaned forward over some switches and levers in front of him, peering up at him through thick goggles. "A caretaker. 4th level. Artaban Drivengear, is it?" Artaban nodded. The regional coordinator said, leaning back in his seat. "Why is a caretaker venturing outside of the Quadrant Clock? I already explained to the QCC that we're not done testing the newest Seeker model, and until we are, I can't authorize them for mass production. I can't just wish them into existence and..." No, Artaban cut in hurriedly. "The QCC didn't send me. I came on my own." The regional coordinator tilted his head. "Your own, you say?" Artaban nodded. The small creature said, his voice skeptical. "Caretakers don't do things on their own, Artaban." Yes, sir," Artaban replied. "These are unusual circumstances. I was coming to explain it to you myself, but I was delayed." He nodded up at the silent Guardian. The regional coordinator glanced at the Guardian, then back at Artaban. After a moment or two, he shrugged. "Open the gate, Guardian," he said. "Consultations must be cleared by the regional override," the regional coordinator interrupted impatiently. "I am the regional coordinator of the Mechanofields." A quiet whirring sound followed this remark. "Reneman Ratchet, Mechanofields Regional Coordinator, acknowledged." The Guardian turned to the gate, its companion on the opposite side moving as he did, and took hold of the lever. Simultaneously, each Guardian pulled back on its respective lever, gears grinding and clanking, and with a groan, the gate began to rise. Reneman Ratchet waited patiently on top of his 8-legged mount, hands poised on the switches in front of his seat. When the gate was completely open, he nodded at Artaban as his ride scuttled around him and through the open portal. He paused just past the entrance and looked over his shoulder. "Well, if you're here to see me, Artaban, follow along and make it quick. I'm behind schedule as it is, and I hadn't planned on fitting in a caretaker's visit of whimsy." And turning, he headed off again. Artaban looked up at the silent Guardian, then stepped through the open gate and followed Reneman Ratchet. He did not bother to look back as he heard the grinding sound of the door closing again, but for some reason he remembered the words of the QCC when he had first began his duties so many cycles ago. 1 cog out of place means 10 more out of sight. Fix all of them now, or get none of them right. The memory did not comfort him. If Artaban-driven gear had been in the mood to go elsewhere, or interest, since caretakers were generally focused on their work in the quadrant clock, the Mechanofields might well have been his chosen destination. Everywhere one looked was activity. Inventors from 7th all the way to 2nd class scurrying among mounds of all different kinds of metals, springs, coils, nuts, bolts, screws, gears, cogs, fittings, grabbing heaps of each and tossing them inside boxes and crates before rushing off again. Some chose not to rush off at all, but sat on the ground cross-legged, puttering away with their prizes, bizarre machines growing in front of them as they worked. Artaban had heard more than one story of an inventor forgetting everything else, even sustenance and sleep, and staying in the Mechanofields until they collapsed from exhaustion, hunger, or thirst. Even the tolerance shown towards inventors on Caldon had its limits, and when complaints of their constant disappearances had reached critical levels, the Council of Makers had finally decided to enact ordinances limiting time and access to the Mechanofields, and had required guardians to do periodic sweeps of the vast metal landscape to ensure compliance. If this had changed things, though, Artaban could not see it, for blissfully unaware inventors were hammering, connecting, attaching, and building everywhere he looked. He had little time to take the view in, though, for Renaman Ratchet's mount moved at a surprising speed, and it took all of Artaban's long strides to keep up. Finally, the regional coordinator vanished behind a particularly high mound of metal widgets, and as Artaban reached the spot a few moments later, he saw the spindly mount stopped in front of a short, squat building in between two hills of components. Renaman Ratchet was struggling with the switches, and as Artaban came up alongside, he could hear the small creature muttering under his breath. "The first maker rust this defective bucket of... Drat!" He looked up at Artaban. "Get me off this thing, Artaban. Carefully, mind you." Artaban blinked, but complied, lifting the regional coordinator so small he could have easily flung him halfway back down the path they had just come, off the seat before gently setting him down next to his mount. Renaman Ratchet aimed a metal-booted kick at one of the creature's 8 legs, which connected with a clang and sent Ratchet backward onto the ground. "They all tell us how much more advanced this Octobot is," he said, brushing off some screws as he got back to his feet. "And in the meantime, don't bother to make sure whether the rusted thing actually works. Bah!" Muttering something else inaudible, he turned and walked to the front door of the building in front of him, touching his armored glove to the surface. With a hiss of steam, the door opened, and still talking to himself, the regional coordinator marched inside. Artaban bent down, metal joints groaning slightly in protest, and carefully followed, his head barely clearing the top of the entrance. For the Mechanofields, the inside of Renaman Ratchet's home was considerably more organized than the caretaker might have expected. There were still metal inventions in various stages of completion everywhere, along with small mechanical flying devices buzzing about, various 3-folded sweepers rolling along the floor, and tables filled with gears and levers and switches. But there were also a couple of empty spaces, and even an open desk behind which sat a wide-backed chair made of some material Artaban did not recognize. The regional coordinator fell into this chair with a clank and a sigh, and after a few moments he motioned towards the open space on the other side of the desk. Artaban, still crouched to avoid hitting the ceiling, half walked and half shuffled to the offered space and sat awkwardly, knees drawn up as if he were a child listening to a story. "So," Renaman Ratchet said, leaning back in his chair, which reclined slightly to accommodate him, "you needed to speak to me about something. On your own." Artaban nodded. "I understand how busy you are, Coordinator. I appreciate the regional coordinator waved his hand. "Skip the preamble, Artaban. I know how grateful you undoubtedly are for a few cycles of my precious time." Artaban blinked through his goggles, and after a moment Renaman Ratchet laughed. He pushed his own goggles back on his head, revealing 2 somewhat startlingly blue eyes, which twinkled slightly. "I've spoken to you several times, Artaban, and the experience has never been bothersome. I'm happy for the curiosity, in fact." "Curiosity?" Artaban asked, feeling lost. "Yes." Renaman Ratchet waved his hand vaguely at his surroundings. "All this. All that's outside, too, outside the Mechanofields, and even Tem. Haven't you ever thought of how amazing it all is? How extraordinary the world we live in, how perfect its function, how incredible all of its workings? Have you ever taken a moment to admire its beauty?" "Yes," Artaban replied, thinking of the view outside his clear shell window on the 4th level. "Yes, I have many times." "And you live in the heart of it all, Artaban. The quadrant clock itself." The regional coordinator sighed. "I envy you." "Me? But I'm only a caretaker. My function is not—" "Oh, your function is enormously important," Renaman Ratchet cut in. "You keep the clock running, and that keeps Tem and Caldon running. And you get to see how it's done. Or you're part of it anyway." As for me, he sighed, I spend my cycles answering questions about widgets and gears, waking fourth-class inventors passed out from exhaustion in the fifth quadrant of the mechanofields, processing applications and invention requests from the other districts. He shook his head. It's certainly not what drew me all those cycles ago to the mechanofields. What did draw you? Artaban asked, suddenly curious. Renamin Ratchet smiled. Love, Artaban. Love of discovery. Revelation. A glimpse into the first Maker's plan. Artaban nodded slowly. I understand. Yes, I think you do. And that's why I enjoy talking to you. No one else you know, certainly not any other caretaker, seems to care about why and how. They just want the what and when. What can I give them? What will they need to do to install what I give them? And when will I be able to do all of it? He sighed again, closing his eyes. It's all very routine. For a moment he was silent, then shook his head. Anyway, you didn't come to hear some old fool ramble about his life path. No, I don't think you're rambling, Artaban said hurriedly. And I think it's routine which is bothering me too. Or at least the breakdown in routine. The regional coordinator said, eyes still closed. So what breakdown can I help you repair then? Artaban hesitated. I wondered if you had heard of something called the decay. Renamin Ratchet's eyes snapped open as he sat up. What? The caretaker blinked again. Well, But he stopped as he saw Renamin Ratchet's face, mouth twitching, eyes narrowed as they stared at him. I can't say for sure, he continued. But decay! Renamin Ratchet finally managed to get out. Where did you hear that word? Once before, many cycles ago. And just now, before I came here. The regional coordinator leaned back in his seat, gazing at Artaban. After a moment, Artaban reached up and undid the restraining band from his shoulder. He gently took hold of the two-folded sweeper and placed it on the desk where it sat, motionless. Renamin Ratchet looked at the sweeper, then raised an eyebrow and looked at Artaban. As I've said, I've always found your sense of curiosity refreshing. I'm considerably less pleased with your sense of humor. Artaban sighed. This isn't a joke, regional coordinator. The other crossed his arms and waited. Earlier this mini-cycle, I was tracking defective sweepers in the 4th level. Rogue sweepers? Defective, Artaban replied with a touch of annoyance. Our sweepers don't go rogue. But there have been some inconsistencies in their performance of late, and the Seekers aren't always able to find them easily. I was able to find this one. Fascinating, Renamin Ratchet replied in a tone which suggested the opposite. What does this have to do with decay? This sweeper told me about it, Artaban said. The regional coordinator stared at him, jaw slack, for a long moment before bursting out into laughter. Huh, well, it was worth this absurd conversation for that, I suppose, he finally said when he had somewhat recovered. You are an intriguing caretaker for certain, Artaban. But if you would take my advice, I wouldn't let the QCC know you're taking unauthorized trips away from the clock to set up elaborate jokes. He's not well known for his... Artaban fought the urge to stand up in exasperation. Damaging Renamin Ratchet's ceiling was not likely to help matters, and settled for clenching his large metallic fist instead as pistons fired. This is not a joke. Renamin Ratchet stopped short, his smile fading. I know two-folded sweepers can't think, Artaban said. I've repaired enough of them, 273 of them over the cycles, to know they can't speak either. But just before I came here, this one spoke, and it told me that all would be lost now that the decay has returned. I came to you, he went on somewhat desperately as he saw Renamin Ratchet's smile hardening into a tight frown, because I don't know anyone else in Tem, or on Calden for that matter, who could and would be able to tell me what the decay is, or why a two-folded sweeper would know about it. And I also came to you, he said more quietly, because I don't know anyone else who would be interested in explaining anything to a caretaker, particularly me. The regional coordinator pursed his lips and tilted his head slightly as he looked at Artaban. Then he sighed. You said you heard of the decay once before? A long time ago, the caretaker replied. I overheard 2 5th-class inventors talking about it when they were meeting with the QCC, right before I was supposed to talk with them to begin my own duties. But I only heard the word, and immediately afterwards they both left in a rush. The QCC seemed angry during that whole first meeting with me, but I had assumed it was because of me. I never heard the word again. Until now. Renamin Ratchet nodded and stood up. For good reason, he said, walking to a shelf on the wall behind him and picking up a small metal sphere from its surface. See anything unusual? he asked, turning it around gently in his armored grasp. Artaban shook his head. Suddenly, Renamin Ratchet tossed the sphere in the caretaker's direction. Instinctively, Artaban put out his gloved hand. As the sphere landed, it burst into a cloud of light brown metallic powder. Other than the slight whirring noise of Artaban's Mark II goggles as two blades automatically wiped the powder off the surface of the lenses, there was silence. Finally, Artaban broke the deadly quiet. This powder... Particles, Renamin Ratchet corrected him. Particles which are, quite obviously, a result of rust. Rust, Artaban thought. The worst enemy of anyone or anything on Caldon. But a massive effort in environmental control, widespread use of atmospheric cleaners, and pristine, artificially maintained conditions had wiped out the threat of rust from the planet countless cycles ago. Not totally wiped out, the regional coordinator said as he walked to Artaban's side, obviously guessing his thoughts. Mostly, but not totally. We've had occasional reports of something here and there sneaking in, but not in any mass-produced manufacturing process. Until recently. He pointed to the pile of brown particles on Artaban's glove. First, it was a 35A model cylinder wrench, then a handful of quadrabolts, then some 16-grade sprockets. All of them the same. Look fine on the outside, but apply any pressure to them, try to do anything with them at all beyond picking them up and putting them down, and... He leaned over and blew a short burst of air toward Artaban's hand, sending the rest of the particles into the air again. Useless. Completely useless. And impossible to detect with virtual inspection. It's rusting from the inside out, which isn't possible either. This is... the decay? Artaban finally managed to ask. No, this is rust, Renamin Ratchet said with a grim smile as he straightened up and returned to his side of the desk, where he sat down heavily in the chair. Normal, ordinary rust. But this can't happen, Artaban objected. Surely someone would have said something. There would be protocols put in place. To do what? Renamin Ratchet said. To try very, very hard not to let it happen again? He shook his head. It's impossible to get real data. The other regional coordinators aren't sharing, and other cities don't report this sort of thing, at least not publicly. But everything I can find suggests that this situation is getting worse, now much more quickly. Parts, machine elements, everything is being affected, and no one, the few who even know that it's going on, knows why or what to do about it. If it continues, and if we can't manufacture enough things to replace what's being lost, you understand what we're looking at? He leaned forward, eyes fixed on Artaban. Eventually, destruction. Complete, total destruction. That is the decay. What happens when everything within the first Maker's plan, all we have and all we are, rusts away into nothingness? He leaned back. Now you tell me. If you're the Council, do you tell everyone on Caldon about something you don't understand and cannot stop? Or do you continue with things as they have always been, hoping the decay will stop before you do? Artaban was silent for a long time, looking at the two Folden sweepers sitting placidly on the regional coordinator's desk. He was, after all, simply the fourth-level caretaker of the Quadrant Clock, not a member of the Council of Makers. For almost all the cycles of his life, he had been content to take his place in the first Maker's great plan. And now what was he to do? Suddenly there was a loud banging sound outside, and the regional coordinator's house shook slightly as something impacted the ground nearby. Rust, Renamin Ratchet swore, springing from his chair as he slid his goggles down onto his eyes. Come on, Artaban. The caretaker carefully picked up the two-Folden sweeper from the desk, reattached it to his shoulder, and followed. As Artaban emerged from the building and stood up straight, with a slight sigh of relief as his joints clicked back to their normal position, he saw Renamin Ratchet staring upwards, and as he followed his gaze, he saw what was attracting his attention. 4 Guardians stood in the path outside the building. As he stepped forward, all 4 of the massive heads turned in his direction, the light from 8 red Flora lamp eyes boring into him. Artaban Drivengear, 3rd Revision Caretaker of the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock, 4 voices boomed. 4 heads swiveled back. Renamin Ratchet, Meccano Fields Regional Coordinator. A pause, then. You are summoned to the Council of Makers. The regional coordinator cleared his throat and stepped forward. Why have we been summoned? He said, his voice mostly level. You are summoned to the Council of Makers, came the 4 replies in unison. Sorry. Renem and Ratchet sighed. I suppose asking for an explanation from the Guardians is a fool's errand, he said, glancing at Artaban. I imagine someone wants to know why I'm overriding Gate Guardian protocols to allow a rogue caretaker to have an unauthorized conversation with me. And the Quadrant Clock Coordinator may want to know why I'm away from my post. I'm sorry, Regional Coordinator. I may have put you into danger. Renem and Ratchet waved his hand impatiently. Bah! No one forced me to. You are summoned to the Council of Makers! The four voices boomed insistently. The Regional Coordinator frowned and nodded. Acknowledged, he replied, and with a last glance at Artaban clambered onto his waiting Octobot. Artaban looked up at the implacable stares of the Guardians and inclined his head slightly. As he stepped next to Renem and Ratchet, two of the Guardians strode behind them and stopped. Renem and Ratchet grinned. A full escort, Artaban. A great honor, don't you think? But caretakers were not fitted with humor modules, and so Artaban did not smile as the party moved off, north towards the Quadrant Clock, and beyond it, the core. Artaban had only been to the core once, many cycles ago when he had first been commissioned and begun his duties. The ceremony had been characteristically short and efficient, but still memorable. His recitation of the oath of caretaking had been flawless, and he could still remember the Quadrant Clock Coordinator's expression, one of the few times it ever seemed pleased, as he stepped forward for official activation by a member of the Council of Makers. But that ceremony had taken place outside of the core itself, the surface of the massive copper-gold pyramid shining on the small group below. Now he was to be taken inside the core to meet with the Council, and as Artaban, Renem and Ratchet and their four Guardian escorts drew close to the front gate of the pyramid, he recalled the rumors that no one entering the core at the Council's request had ever been known to leave it again. Caretakers were not equipped to feel fear exactly, but uncertainty, instability, even doubt were necessary components of a caretaker's personality, allowing the caretaker to go beyond the obvious in replacing or repairing a potential problem in the Quadrant Clock. Artaban felt all three of those things very strongly now. Still, for just a moment every other feeling fell away as he watched two of the Guardians knock 3 times in unison on the front gate, a deep booming noise echoing inside the building with each knock. But the noise did not stop after the 3rd time. It intensified into a deep rumble which Artaban could feel in the ground below his feet. Renem and Ratchet's Octobots stepped left and right as the surface shook slightly. The top of the gate began to drop, and Artaban heard the sound of gears grinding as the gate slowly descended into the ground. As the space beyond, lit by glowing red floor lamps, became visible, Artaban's eyes widened. There's only one room, he said. Of course, Renem and Ratchet replied, gazing at the lowering gate while he bobbed up and down on the Octobot. There's only one room inside the core. At least only one room anyone knows about. The Council holds session here. But where do they keep everything else? Everything else? The Regional Coordinator chuckled. They don't need anything else. The core is just the core, just as it is. Artaban was inclined to view this answer as a little cryptic, but before he could ask more, the top of the gate clicked into place on the floor below, and the 2 Guardians stepped into the revealed area beyond. Muttering something under his breath, Renem and Ratchet threw a switch on the Octobot and set off after them, and after one more look at the 2 implacable Guardians behind him, Artaban followed. As they passed the portal, he heard the rumbling sound again. A one-way journey, Renem and Ratchet said quietly, almost too quiet to hear over the sound of the Guardian's booming footsteps and the scraping sound of the Octobot as it scuttled along. But Artaban heard him, and as he saw the brilliant light of Tem from behind him gradually disappearing as they moved along, he was inclined to agree with the sentiment. The gate behind them closed with an echoing crash, but Artaban paid little attention, for they had come, at last, to the center of the core. The roof above them soared to its apex at the top of the pyramid, and through a small aperture at that point a shaft of golden light stabbed downwards into the center of the room, where it hit a multifaceted mirror and splintered into 8 parts. Each new beam of light shone outwards to one of 8 mirrors angled upwards, and each redirected beam met again in the middle of the room. A pyramid within a pyramid, thought Artaban, and a good way to remind anyone entering the room about where their focus should be. For below the pyramid of light sat 9 chairs in an inverted V, 4 on each side and 1 at the point, and in each chair sat a hooded figure, robed in red and holding a glowing orb on its lap. The Council of Makers, Renem and Ratchet whispered. As the group drew close, the figure at the point of the V stood. The two leading guardians stepped to the side and turned to face each other, while the two trailing guardians stopped as Artaban and Renamin Ratchet, dismounting as Octobot, faced the supreme leaders of Kaldan. There was a long silence. Finally, Renamin Ratchet cleared his throat and took one small, tentative step forward. Renamin Ratchet, Maker. I am Mechanofield's regional coordinator, a gravelly voice intoned. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, but Artaban assumed the standing figure to be the logical source. And there was something else, too, something familiar about the voice. You are known to the Council, Renamin Ratchet. You were summoned, but you are not addressed yet. Renamin Ratchet shut his mouth with a snap. Artaban Drivengear, 3rd Revision, caretaker of the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock, the gravelly voice intoned. I am Artaban Drivengear, Maker, Artaban said, inclining his head respectfully. The Council also knows who you are, caretaker, the voice replied. You also were summoned. There was a pause, then finally, do you know why? Artaban opened his mouth in surprise. Yet it quickly occurred to him that a test of his functionality, or at least his loyalty, would be a reasonable step for his creators to take, and so he replied simply, I assume, Maker, that I am to be punished for leaving my post at the Quadrant Clock without authorization. The standing figure nodded slowly. And why would the Quadrant Clock coordinator not be responsible for assessing and carrying out that punishment? Artaban hesitated. I assume that my transgression is more severe, Maker. You assume a great deal, caretaker, the voice said, and Artaban felt the uncertainty and doubt begin to rise again. In fact, the voice went on, you have assumed a great deal for most of your cycles as caretaker since your activation. According to the Quadrant Clock Coordinator, you spend as much time questioning why something happens as you do actually repairing the defect. Other caretakers are content to repair, replace, and correct. You require explanations. Artaban blinked, but said nothing. The caretaker's role, the voice went on, is to maintain the perfect operation of the Quadrant Clock. That role is not negotiable, not adjustable, not flexible. And it is the most sacred of tasks any Kaldonian can aspire to. When you were activated, you were given the honor of caretaking. It appears you do not appreciate the honor. And if you do not appreciate the honor of your duties, the Council does not see it as advisable for you to continue to neglect them. The voice was silent for a moment before asking, What say you to this? Artaban's mind whirled as Renamin Ratchet stared at him. He had never truly considered the possibility that he would be decommissioned, that he would end his existence here, in the core, never again being able to look from his clear shell window on the 4th level of the Quadrant Clock to see the city of Tem laid out in its orderly perfection. Most of all, its beauty, the almost overwhelming brightness, the movement of millions of sweepers, seekers, inventors, guardians, cogs, gears, wheels. What is this? The harsh voice suddenly asked, breaking in on his thoughts. What are you doing? And Artaban realized he had bowed his head and lifted his hands to his face. And though he had not had the need for this function in many cycles, his Mark II mechano goggles were busily cleaning moisture away from the inside of the lenses. Artaban straightened and lowered his hands. I did not wish to offend, he said at last. Perhaps I am indeed different from the other caretakers. I have strived to do my duty as a part of the First Maker's plan. If my fulfillment of that duty is insufficient, then I must be replaced. Now wait, Renamin Ratchet began, but fell silent as the red-robed Maker stepped forward. And what of your two-folded sweeper? The voice asked. And suddenly Artaban realized something about the voice. It also seemed to be coming from right next to him. Reaching up, he detached the restraining band and gently lowered the sweeper onto the floor. It rolled forward to the feet of the Maker, then turned to face the caretaker. This is our world, it said. But the words came not just from the sweeper, but from the Maker, and Artaban finally realized something else. It is the same voice, he said. It is the voice of the Council, the sweeper and Maker replied. It is the voice of Kaldan. And raising one hand as the other held the glowing orb, the Maker pushed back its hood as Artaban stepped back in astonishment. It was the Quadrant Clock's 9th level caretaker, Irodel Socket Wheel, 5th Revision, who many cycles ago had gone directly to the core and never come back. "The first Maker protect us," Ardaben vaguely heard Renamin Ratchet whisper next to him. But his gaze did not waver from Iridel's face, which looked the same as it had... No, not the same. The skin seemed wrinkled, the goggles sunken, the metal around the neck dull and flecked with brown. "I seem different, Ardaben," Irodel said with a wry smile, still in the same gravelly voice. "Older. Decayed." Ardaben nodded mutely. "But I cannot be decaying, for I am more mechanic than organic, just as you are," Irodel said. "When a caretaker is scrapped, it is the inside which has failed. A new revision has made the old model obsolete. But the outside looks more or less the same." Irodel sighed. "Yet I am decaying, Ardaben. I am decaying just as the caretaker before me was when I was summoned here. Summoned for asking too many questions." He looked down at the sweeper, an almost kind expression passing over his features. "In my case, it was a seeker that started it all." "I don't understand," Ardaben finally managed. "I didn't either," Irodel said, smiling again. "It's why I ended up here." He looked up at the pyramid of light above him. "Haven't you always wondered," he asked, "why things worked the way they do? Haven't you always wanted to know more about how we first learned to make things, build them, put them together?" He looked back at Ardaben. "Or how we learned things at all? Haven't you ever marveled at the first Maker's plan? Or wondered about your own place in it?" "Yes," Ardaben replied simply. Irodel nodded. "Your reaction when I suggested it was your time to be decommissioned and scrapped told me that already. It was my reaction when I was told the same thing many cycles ago." He lifted his arms, embracing the air. "This is a beautiful world in which we live. A beautiful, strange world with many riddles to answer and secrets to learn. There are many more questions that we could hope to answer, of course, but the true joy lies in the questioning, not the answering." He lowered his arms and smiled at Ardaben. "But you already know this. It is why you are here." Ardaben shook his head, not understanding. "Every caretaker, when confronted with the two-folded sweeper which cannot speak because it has no vocal mechanism, but speaks nonetheless, does not question why the sweeper speaks. The caretaker scraps the sweeper and requests a new one. Or the seeker, or whichever thing is behaving entirely outside of its ability to behave. The caretaker maintains and preserves. The caretaker does not question or seek out anything beyond what is necessary to fulfill its role. Except you, and me many cycles ago, and the ones who came before us. The ones who asked, why?" Irodel's expression grew serious. "There have been many sweepers and seekers and other such insignificant machines constructed and sent out by the Council over the cycles, each with a message. Almost all of them have been destroyed immediately by the caretakers. But every once in a while, once in 10 million interactions or more, a caretaker does not destroy the machine. He asks why it is functioning as it is, and hears its message, and seeks out more knowledge. And eventually, that caretaker is summoned before the Council of Makers, as you have been summoned before me." "Then all of the other makers are caretakers too?" Renamin Ratchet asked. Irodel smiled sadly. "At one time, Renamin Ratchet, but that time has passed." And he lifted his orb, which flared with light, and the pyramid of light above and the orbs in each of the seated figures' lamps flared in answer. 8 hoods flew back, and Ardaben and Renamin Ratchet gasped. They were all the faces of caretakers, but all were rusted away, all sightless and unmoving. "How long?" the regional coordinator finally said, voice husky. "Many cycles," Irodel replied. "Edifast Leverfast, 2nd Revision, the one who summoned me, was the last to go, but even he has been gone for a long time. I am all of the Council of Makers now." "Then the decay is real," Ardaben said. "The decay is real, and all of Tem and Kalden will fall before it." "No," Irodel said, his smile brightening. "The decay is real, but there is hope, Ardaben. You are that hope. You and Renamin Ratchet, and the others like you, whom you will find as I have found you. I had almost given up, you know, he said, leaning down as rusted pistons groaned within the folds of his robe and picking up the two-folded sweeper with his free hand. I had sent out messengers as Edophas had done, but with no result. I had found none willing to question, and those who will not question even if they fear the answers. Those who will not seek out the truth because they wish to, not because their protocols insist that they do, are of no use at all. I had almost assumed that there was none left in Tem or on Caldon who would think as I did. He gazed at the sweeper, then at Artaban and Renamin Ratchet. But Edophas had told me that hope was the most mysterious, unusual, and inscrutable of things, that it is found in the darkest of places, and with neither data, nor evidence, nor logic to sustain it. And he was right, for where Edophas found one questioner in all of Caldon, I have found two. Between you both, you, Artaban, who will become the new member of the Council of Makers, and you, Renamin Ratchet, who will go forth and seek out answers as Artaban instructs you, you will find more. Perhaps 4, and those 4 will find 8, and those 8, 16. And eventually the thousands and then millions of questioners will find an answer to the decay. I will not see it, Iridel said, stepping back and sitting down heavily in his seat. But I will know it will be seen, and I am grateful, happy. He laughed, a strange, grating noise. A caretaker, happy. That itself is a most wondrous thing. Another question. And with a smile fixed on his face, his goggles dulled, Irodel Socket Wheel, 5th Revision, bowed his head and never moved again. There was a long, empty silence. Finally, Renamin Ratchet spoke. First Maker, he said in a mixture of awe and sadness. What are we to do? He looked at Artaban as the caretaker walked to Iridel's body and carefully picked up the orb. As he did, the orb flared to life, and the light pyramid overhead glowed and sparkled with energy, vitality, life. He gazed at it a while, then looked back down and carefully picked up the two-folded sweeper with his other hand, watching as the small mechanical body quivered gently in his grasp. Then, with a wide smile, he looked up at the regional coordinator. We are to live, Renamin Ratchet, said Artaban Drivengear, 3rd Revision, member of the Council of Makers. We are to ask questions and find answers. We are to live. The end. Well, there you go. That's it. As he waits for the delay. Oh my god, that delay. You know, decay is not bad. Thank you guys, thank you. Thank you. That was a fun story to write. It was a lot longer than I planned it to be. It's actually about 8,500 words, which is really a little bit over long. Yeah, I know that delay. Oh, man. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. No, that's it. That's the end of that story. So I've seen some good ones as I was going along. The good ones, however, does not involve oily bikini car mechanics. Yeah, I thought about the core, but the voice of Decay is not bad. Rust control. Rust. Because the problem was I was gonna call it the Caretaker of Tem, But the problem is that I have a short story that just came out this year called The Caretaker of Meyer. Totally different universe, etc. And I don't want to get people confused about, wait, what Caretaker is this? So I can't do Caretaker again. Caretaker. I hope that's a good WoW, rookie. Oh, the Primordia video game? Oh, I'll have to keep that in mind, Grows. Mr. Lube. Yeah, great. Voice of Decay. That's not bad. Internal Decay, Voice of Decay. So... Oh, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. The Voice of Decay. Yes, yes. Well, and that's why I like that, Dragon. Yeah, The Voice of Decay. Demiser. That society could maybe do that, actually. Decay's voice. Voices decay. Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, Stolpen, because it's actually initially came from a little character treatment that I did for a card game called Ascension. Some of you out there may have played it. It's a pretty big deal now. There's actually an iOS app for it too, Ascension the card game. Guy who designed it is a friend of mine, and I ended up doing a lot of flavor text for the cards in that game, and also did some character treatments, but he never used them. And so he said, oh yeah, you can use this. So I basically took it and modified it heavily. That was the first few pages. So the first, like, I don't know, 1,200 words or something was that, and then everything else was afterwards. But, Voice of Decay. I could just call it Decay. Or The Decay. I could be really lame and I could call it... Sephiroth's Revenge. Voice of Decadence. Yeah. Voiced Internal Decay. That's maybe a little bit. The Voice of Decay. I could also call it... I could call it A Question of Decay. See, if I do that, if I call it The Light of Decay, that's not bad. Oh, it's not really light that causes it, but it's... Yeah, it's funny to myself. That's not bad, Rixa, but I'm not quite sure that's in the way I was going. The reason I thought of A Question of Decay... see, the problem with A Question of Decay is, see, if I do that, if I do A Question of Decay, that's going to feel more... That would feel more sort of goofy. Like, I could see it and being like, it's a question of decay, but I feel like the story's more serious than that. Question of delay. I thought about calling it questions and answers, but that's too generic. I think you guys are right. It has to be something with decay. I think decay definitely has to be there somewhere. Yeah, it seems too obvious to me, too. Something with decay, not the question of, though. Something decay. I thought about that. Eh. Yeah, the voice of decay. Atrophy, yeah, entropy. George Decay. Roix. Oh my. That's what I should do. I should call it the decay of decay, and then George Decay will get it and tweet it, and all of a sudden I'll break into the big time. Overnight. That's what I need to do. Brilliant idea. Louis Decay. Voice of Decay. Maybe time and decay? Oh, what about this one? What about that one? Doubt and Decay. Or does that sound too much like a Jane Austen novel? Yeah, Doubt and Decay. What do you think? Clockwork Decay. Yeah, that's... I thought about something about clocks, but it gets... The problem is it's too obvious then. Exactly, Demiser. I thought about Clockwork Decay, but it's not bad, but it doesn't bring him in the right direction. Doubt and Decay, Time and Decay, Clockwork Decay. I know, right? The more you say Decay, it becomes something wrong. Yeah, I know. Doubt and Decay is too Jane Austen-y. Darn it. There we go. That's it right there. Ruination through something decay. Yeah. No, we're definitely making progress. We've definitely figured out it has to be decay somewhere. Yeah, I kind of like that, but I feel like that sounds like a spy novel. Clockmaker, Watchkeeper. This is definitely helping, though, guys. The decay, time enough for decay. He works on the 4th level. 4th level decay. That's not bad, though, Rixa. That's not bad. What about that? Decay a Mockingbird. What about that? Times decay. It was called a two-fold and sweeper. Axe. Make your time all your base. Yeah, the two-fold and sweeper isn't bad, but it's very specific. Tales of a teenage two-fold and sweeper. The city is called Tem. Oh, Lego. What about that? It's called Tem. What about that? Because it plays on, right? Because it's the city, and people will think of it as times decay. Time of decay. Hey, what's up, Dries? Yeah, man. Yeah, you did. I'll try to put it up there as a highlight, though. What do you guys think of... God, that delay is terrible on this stream. What about Thames delay? What do you guys think of Thames delay? All right, what do you guys think? Thames decay. So here are the choices. Like this. It's like decay. Sorry, Rixa. So it's one of these. It's either the city is called Tem. So there's the choices. It's either the decay of Tem, or decay of Tem, or Thames decay. No. I got a better one. I got a better one. Because that's general enough that people know what decay is. They don't know what Driven Gear is, but Driven Gear directly ties into what the story is about. Calden is the name of the world. But what do you guys think about decay and Driven Gear? Henrius. It is a serious issue, yes. What do you guys think of Decay and Driven Gear? Let me pop this up. This is just, I'm not going to necessarily go along with this. I just want to sort of see what people think. So let me pop up a straw poll here. Gears at Lost Sweeper of Calden. That's cool, Rookie. That almost sounds like a freaking barbarian movie. The Lost Sweeper of Calden. I'm going to make a poll. All right, here, let me see. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Why do I not have... What happened to my... What? The devil happened to my freaking... The heck happened to my freaking... what do you call it? The Firefox extensions. What? What's going on with my Firefox extensions? Add-ons. Oh. Man, I have to okay, hold on. I gotta restart. Give me a second. Alright, hang on a second, guys. I gotta restart this. Just be patient. Where is my thing, man? Why? What happened to Noxious's awesome thing that he did? Man, I gotta talk to Noxious because for some reason it's like not, it's missing now. All of a sudden my poll thing is missing. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way. Which is okay. Alright, give me a second while I redo the chat. Hang on, be patient. Here we go. Hold on. All right, now let me fix chat in OBS. Bear with me. And I'm going to have to see that again because I just turned chat off. So if there was something awesome, you're going to have to let me know about it in a second. Okay. Alright, chat is back. Now, what was this awesome thing? So can someone, let me see. Let me put up a straw poll. Yeah, I bet that's what happened, Grows, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna check here. I see you, Rez. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Alright, guys. See, what do you think of this? Here we go. Go ahead there and see what you guys think. That's great, Lego. Tremendous. Well done. I know. The delay is a pain in the ass. Oh, well, yeah. But Decay is so... I mean, they don't know... Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. Yeah, but... Well, actually... wanting Makers referenced in the title? Yeah, you make a good point, Rookie. That's interesting. Decay and Driven Gear, yeah. Hey, what's up, Morris? Yeah, you missed it. I'm going to try to put it up as a highlight. We're just trying to figure out the name, because I couldn't figure out the name before. Let's see. Yeah, no, you make a good point, Rook. Let's see. It looks like people like Tem's Decay, the Decay of Tem. Well, the question really is whether or not Decay is going to throw everything off. Because, like, the mystery... I mean, the mystery really is not about Decay or not Decay. The mystery is why Artaban is summoned to the council, who is the council, what happens to people who go there. Like, you know... I do like the Lost Sweeper of Kalden. I mean, it's... The Lost Sweeper of Kalden is very specific. That's one where people are like, what? Councils and sweepers. Yeah, I like that. I like that Lost Sweeper of Kaldon. Artaban. That's fair, but you also want a title axe that is going to draw you in, though, right? I mean, yes, that you're right. You do want that, but right. And the third sign is kind of I mean, that doesn't give you any clue as to what's the mystery of the book. The third sign is just this thing, you know. Yeah, exactly, Burner. Death Wall. Yeah, exactly. I totally should have called it that. Decay, the Lost Sweeper of Kaldon. No, I get you, Grows. I'm trying to consider something which works too. Yeah, exactly. No, I get that, Grows. The Lost Sweeper of Kaldon. You know what? I think I like that. The Lost Sweeper of Kaldon. I think I like that one. I think that may be a winner. The more I look at that, the more I like that. I mean, now the question is that a title that would make you pick it up and look at it? Is that a title that would make people go, oh, you know, it's kind of interesting. Because that's a key, too. Sounds good. Night Dragon. Thanks, man. The art would be what would bring you to the title. No, Rez. It's not a chapter. It's a story. That's a included short story. No, not gonna add. Honestly. Death and trivia. Chicks love death. Good grief. No, you're naming a story, Rez. Yeah, so this is a short story that's going to appear. That's not bad, Rookie, but I feel like that's a little too bizarre. Like, that's a little, like, people are going to be like, wait, what? Like, two words that mean nothing combined with each other. So that's maybe a little bit too out there. I want something that can at least bring people in. I also like the Lost Sweeper of Kaldon because it is what gets things started, you know? I like that. And Eric, yeah, you're right. I mean, you make a good point, Eric, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's I feel like that idea, like the title reminds me of a street cleaning device of a mythical city name. But that's okay. Like, I mean, if people come into it not knowing what to expect, and they come into it being like, I wonder what is a sweeper? What does that mean? What is Kalden? I think that would work out. I think that's going to be it. I think that's the title. Yay! Thanks, guys. Thanks. I like that. I like that. I think that works. I like that. So, separate from that, hey, what's up, Tobo? Yeah, I'm afraid so, man. I'm afraid so. Oh, no problem, Rixa. Yeah, sorry about Twitch, guys. I wish nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. The lost rusted street sweeper of Titan. Sounds good. Night, Rixa. Night, Clumsy. Plaza Sweeper is already lost. Yeah, but remember, though, Demiser, the nice thing about the title is, remember, this is Artaban's perspective. And from Artaban's perspective, he imagines it as being a lost sweeper. Like, basically, most people outside in the world outside would look and go, oh, there's something wrong with the sweeper. Like, it's broken. Or it's lost, or it's vanished. Hey, Zamaria, what's up? You know what I mean? So that's my thought. My thought is that the idea is to sort of take it from the perspective of the people who would be looking at it. And so it plays with that idea. It's lost, and yet it's not lost, obviously. And it takes somebody like Artaban to discover the difference. You know? Because I could also just call it the Sweeper of Kalden, but I like the Lost Sweeper because it implies there's an issue with the people on the planet. So that's my thought. Thanks, guys. I like that. Good stuff. I like it. Sold. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Thank you very much. Sweet. Okay. So, now that I have you all as a captive audience, it's 1:45. All right, let's try to get a little bit of playing in. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play like a half hour, 45 minutes. Yeah, it's okay, Zamaria. I'll try to put it up as a highlight. Thank you all very, very much, though. You guys are awesome, including this fighting through this terrible delay. So what we're going to do is we're going to play like about a half hour or so of Paper Sorcerer. And then I'm going to do a giveaway, and then I will call it. Then, like I said, my next stream will be back to a normal length stream. But I wanted to make sure I got the story read.